All right. So, one thing that I wanted to do with you guys is I wanted to do a little bit of theory crafting. And we got to figure out, how do we theory craft in StarCraft? Can anybody tell me, what does theory crafting do? And how do you do it? Because a lot of people can't do it. At least, in my opinion, a lot of people can't. So, someone, give me an example of theory crafting for StarCraft. Thinking of potential strategies, theories of strategies. Yes. Can you guys give me an example? My Ghost build versus Zerg. Okay, so that's a build. That's not necessarily theory crafting, right? I designed a build, so if someone wanted to copy it, they could copy it. If someone else uses that build, that's not really theory crafting. So I want someone to kind of go a little bit more in depth of what it is. Pretend this is like a class, because this is what I do in real life, guys. I'm a teacher when it comes to mathematics, and I gotta probe you guys. I don't just give the answer. Theory means prediction. Ghost snipe opening. Prediction. Building the counter your opponents. Oh, come on, guys. You guys got this. Give me an example. I'm asking for an example, not an explanation. So, someone said Ghost build versus Zerg. Okay. The guy Sensei said that, right? That is a small example. Now, how do you make it a theory crafting example out of that one? This is like an extra credit. To go snipe the queens for the BC follow-up. Yeah, that's a strategy. So I developed a strategy doing that. Okay, so theory crafting is taking something you know and manipulating it. Okay? Taking something that you know and manipulating it. So I'm going to go ahead and go back in game here real quick. Alright. And let's take a look at our last game real quick. Alright. Let's take a look at our last game. I was mentioning to you guys I did something new a couple games ago. And it worked. And it probably could have worked a little bit better. So this is a build. I developed this build. And I theory crafted this build off of other builds. Okay? That's how I made this build. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it is that I'm doing. So here, I do the Marauders, right? And I put a bunker up. I don't have to do this bunker thing. But tell me what happens when you make a bunker. What is happening when you make a bunker and not make a bunker? Somebody tell me. What's the difference? Very straightforward answer. Probe reaction? Okay, I guess that could work. Probe reaction, maybe. It forces the Protoss to stop mining with one worker or two workers or something, right? It forces a stalker out. Okay. Well, if normally it would force like a zealot out, in my opinion, not so much a stalker, but he doesn't see it. All right. Aggro versus non-aggro. Okay, all right. I'm going to keep it very simple, guys. Build more Vikings. You got it. Minerals. There you go. So, I just did 100 minerals here. Okay? Now, think of it like this. When you get into the late game, does minerals and gas matter as much as it does at the very beginning? Not so much, right? Because later on, you're just getting an explosion of minerals and gas, and you're just kind of like trying to keep up your economy and constantly make units based on your army comp. So really, a lot of the theory crafting comes in the very beginning of the game on how you approach the game. So here, I just spent 100 minerals. So what does that mean? My command center is going to be delayed a little bit, right? So it's going to be delayed, but I'm hoping that it turns out well, that I can really force something out of the Protoss. And it worked out pretty well, because we did. Now, the other option is, the other thing is, take a look at this. I'm going to go ahead and commit to my build. So I send my Marauders across the map. Alright, and so we committed to our build. We still have 3 Marauders. We still have our 2 Hellions coming, right? What do you guys notice about this Rax right here? What's it doing? I'm gonna let the game play a little bit. What's this Rax doing? It's chilling. It's doing nothing, right? So let me ask you guys. This Rax built a tech lab that was right here, right? So, I'm going to go to the other game. If I'm not using that Rax at all, then what can I do with that barracks that I did in this game? I could scout with it, yeah. I totally could. But if I lose it, then I can't build factories and stuff. Look over here. I'm doing the exact same build. Doing the exact same build. I still make 3 Marauders. I'm still making mines. I'm still making into 2 Hellions in the beginning. But that factory did nothing with my normal build. So technically I could proxy it and just make a very small investment in building a tech lab at home if I wanted to. So this is another thing that you guys can do as long as it has potential, right? So depending on what kind of builds you're doing, you can manipulate your builds and change them so that you can put in some other kind of build order. So now I'm going to do something else here. Now let's try to look at a game from... Let's look at that TVT game here real quick. What about this game? So I have a build that I like to open up with. This particular build, I like to send a worker right away. So let me ask, what's good about sending this worker so fast and so early? What's good about it? This is like super fast scouting. Scout for early cheese. Yeah, that's right. You can scout for early cheese. And you delay the racks of the opponent if they don't react fast enough. This is super good because I opened up with a well, we both opened up with a gas first, it looks like. Yeah, same exact build. My Rax is just tiny bit delayed because I sent this SCV out. But look what happens. This SCV is like, okay, man, let's go ahead and be annoying, just like how probes do in your base. Now his Rax is delayed. What happens when the Rax is delayed? Can anybody actually explain that? What happens there? Dead, not just dead. You have unit advantage. In a sense, yes. You have a little bit of a unit advantage. Reaper delayed, factory delayed, starport delayed. If they were to try to rush it really quickly. And even though it's only like 5-10 seconds, that's a big deal because those 5-10 seconds can actually get you some units out back at home. So that's the crazy thing. And that's what I do with this build. I do that on purpose because I delay my starport. By delaying my starport, you'll notice something in this game that I do. So here we delay his Rax, and this is really good for us. Especially since he's doing a double gas build. That's even more of a reason that he wanted to delay his Rax. So we just delayed his Rax. And we got scouting information off. And our worker can go home knowing that we're not getting proxy. Unless they do a Rax at home and a Rax proxy. But I don't find those to be as good. So if my opponent gets caught off guard, we're ahead. All right, so his factory is delayed because of that. He dropped it immediately, right? He's starting his Reaper. Well, guess what? My Reaper's already more ahead now because of that. And look at this. I'm not even dropping a factory yet. I don't care. I don't have to worry about a starport right away. But guess what? Let's just go ahead and expand faster than him. But you know what? Because I know it was delayed, and I know that means any kind of Banshee tech, any kind of Liberator tech, anything like that is delayed as well by just a little bit more. I'm going to get my third before my starport. Why? Because I'm not worried about air units as early. So I can technically delay my Vikings a little bit. This is how I get to be greedier if I want to. So you notice that, right? So this is basically what's happening. As my third is building, it's almost halfway done. It's faster than is natural. See that? Because of the way we pursued this. Also because he went for double gas and we didn't. So we're expanding super quick behind what we're doing. Now, I'm going to go back in time here. And I'm going to show you guys something here. Now, you'll notice that I'm making Reapers, right? I make 2 Reapers. And this entire time, I make nothing else. Nothing else, literally. Everything else is minerals. I'm just saving up and teching up, using that 1 gas. So, if I were to not make the Reapers, what would happen? Pretend I don't make those Reapers. What does that mean? Can anybody explain that? Keep it simple. Vulnerable? No, not necessarily. What if I made Marines instead and put them on the ramp? What if I decided to make Marauders instead? 100 gas more. Exactly. Exactly, Licked. 100 gas more. So technically, I could have gotten my factory a little bit faster because I delayed it to expand, right? That's the same with the starport. Technically, I could get it out super, super, super fast. Like when I play versus Zerg, I make one Marine and go straight into Reactor Hellion, right? I hit a timing with 2 Hellions because they don't have ling speed yet, for example. So yeah, in this particular matchup, though, it's safer to make the Reaper, and I can expand behind it. But this is 100 gas, and the only other gas stuff that I made that is not taking up to starport is the reactor. That's 150 gas right there. You'll notice that my other openers are, I delay my starport just a little bit as well, and I expand fairly quickly at the exact same timing as these. But what's the difference? Instead of 2 Reapers, I have a Cyclone. Instead of 2 Hellions, I have 2 Marauders instead. See that? 2 Marauders is like the gas of a Reaper, but it's same price as the 2 Hellions. And then the Cyclone allows me to get a little bit more minerals than normal. About 50 more minerals than normal. Because the Tech Lab has less gas. The Tech Lab has only 25 gas. So at the same exact timing as I'd have 2 Reapers, 2 Hellions, I would have a Cyclone and 2 Marauders. You see that? So this is how I go about doing my builds. Now, the other part about doing these kind of theory crafting is, okay, if I made those units, what could screw me over if I made those units? So if I made this, what could kill me? As of right now. Anybody know? Air units? Can't be air units because we delayed his racks a little bit. It's something that could kill me. Yeah, we delayed his air units. They don't have it yet. I don't even have my starport up. Let's pretend it's this timing. Tank? Nope. Marines? I don't know about Marines. Ghost? Nope. Let's pretend my opponent said, screw it. I'm gonna blind counter. I'm gonna blind counter this full RuFF. I'm gonna go straight into Reactor Hellions. So at this timing that I have this, he could be at my front with 4 Hellions and 2 more probably following up right here before the other ones come out. But by the time that hits, this will be finished. Okay? With this particular timing, 3:30 in the game. So, what am I doing with my Reapers and Hellions at the moment? Where are they? They're in my base, right? They're on the ledge up here. There's a reason for that. Because I don't want to get caught out. So if this guy comes rushing in, guess what? Oh, he kills 1 worker. Or maybe 2 workers. But I know what he's doing. I know how to go about countering it. But this is going to finish with my orbital. And then I got to think about if he's going to spot this or not. See that? So there's a few different ways that you can go about it. And you got to keep this. And when you're playing StarCraft, you got to keep this in your mind the entire time. What can kill you at this time with what you have, you know, basically in the beginning of the game. And so that is how I refine these builds so well. And that is how I create these builds. Because I'm going to say, well, I'm going to make a Marauder. Okay? What'll kill my Marauder? Mass Reapers, right? If I don't have Concussive Shell. I got to be very careful. So, I've had situations where I've been proxy Reapered, and I would lose. And I'm going to show you something real quick. Maybe I can find a game here, a TBT game. Where I probably did go for Marauders. I don't know which game I did. Let's look at this game. And you can do this in any matchup. If you can think like this, and you can get your speed up, because, hell, I know Diamond players, and I know Masters players who have a crap ton of APM, and they macro like gods. I'll sit there and I'll play them. They'll macro like gods, but they don't have this kind of information in the back of their head that keeps them from dying from early stuff and keeps them alive and being able to micro out of it into the macro game. And so, for any of you guys who are at that level, I'm sure you guys have like 300 APM, 400 APM. I wouldn't be surprised, especially as a Masters player. You gotta keep that in your mind as you're doing your build. So even if you're copying a pro player, ask yourself, at that point in the game, what can kill me? Right? Yeah, I don't know why the music's so loud. Give me a second. I think it just, like, went up, like, a lot. Because I'm in replays for some reason. But yeah. So, do I do it here? No, I don't do it here. Let's try to find a game where I do the Marauder. I remember playing, what's his face? Was it this guy? Because he was, he sniped me like almost the entire time or something. At least it felt like it. He probably didn't, but... Nah, I think he did, because I remember being like, duh, bitch! And he took it offensively, and I think he kept queuing up versus me. So... even though I was just dicking around. People get fucking sensitive. But see here. Okay, so I do a tech lab, right? So I'm doing tech lab and factory. Why would I do a tech lab before the factory? If I'm doing this, instead of doing a factory and then a tech lab. What's the difference in the timings? I brought it up a few times on stream, so some of you guys who have been paying attention, who have been trying to learn from these builds, should know. What's the difference here? You can switch a tech lab to factory. So yeah, technically, if I built the tech lab first, but look at what I'm doing with the tech lab. I'm making the Marauder. When I was trying to develop builds with a Marauder opener in the past, I used to do it the opposite way around. I used to do the factory and then the Marauder. And then I'd have one Marauder kind of, you know, stopping a Reaper from trying to get into the base. But something always killed me whenever I did that. What killed me every single time I did this was someone who proxied Reapers. Why? Because when I lift up that factory and I try to put it on the tech lab, I'm trying to build a Cyclone during that time. And by the time the Cyclone's about to come out, there's about 7 Reapers in my base. And my Marauder's dead. So I reversed it. I reversed it because it felt better that way, especially versus proxies if I don't scout it. And by reversing it, there's a small timing here. You can see this right now, where I can make 2 Marauders instead of just 1. And what's cool about this is, because you only invested 25 gas, you're only technically 25 gas behind with this factory, instead of building the factory and then building the tech lab, right? So being slightly behind like that, you'll notice my gas income. Look at my gas right now. I'm going to lift that factory up. And then look at the Marauder timing. Look at this timing. It's nice. Marauder's out. I can flip it now. Now, if I did this more on point, it would have been at about 100 gas, and I would have had my Cyclone building already. And you'll notice something, too, is that if you do a Reaper opener, Factory and then Reaper, okay, you hit the same timing because a Reaper takes twice as long as a Marine to build, and the Marauder is only like 2 or 3 seconds behind the Marine, whereas the Reaper is like almost twice as long as a Marauder or twice as long as a Marine. So you're technically getting 2 Marauders instead of a Reaper behind the Cyclone. And I like this better, a lot better, because it's a lot safer. And I can do some work with this. You would be surprised. Sometimes I just send these guys straight across the map. And when I send them straight across the map and there's no bunker, guess what? And especially with the way he's doing this build, I hit the front before Marines come out with those 2 Marauders, and I delay. I either delay or I kill like 1 or 2 workers, and the Reaper can't do anything about it. You'd be surprised. It's crazy how that can work. It just depends on how ballsy you want to be if you think that they're going to attack you or not. Because if you think they're going to attack you, you can cover both points like this. I don't even need concussive shells for this. It's just a good opener without concussive shells. And so that's why I designed it this way. And then it allows me to kind of go into this kind of mechy tech. I'm going to call it mechy tech. All right? That allows me to go straight into a tech lab. Now you'll notice here that I'm doing something a bit different. This is where I was theory crafting a bit. Hey, can I get Blue Flame Hellions behind my Hellion Raven stuff with the opener? It didn't work out so well because later on in the timing, I would have to make the sacrifice of not getting the armor upgrade because I'm 100 gas behind with this particular build. That's what I found out when I was doing this. This works better when I do gasless because I'm more greedier. And so I found that out in this game, and that's why this failed miserably in this game, because I was like, oh crap, I couldn't get the armor, I couldn't... auto turrets were dying too easily because I didn't have that upgrade. These little things really adjust the builds with the timings. And you'll notice that I don't copy pros, and when I start making builds, I will lose. I lose. You know, that's part of StarCraft. But what's funny is when I do these builds, I learn from it, and then I make them something powerful. And they start to get stronger and stronger and stronger every time I do them. And that's what happened back in Heart of the Swarm. In Heart of the Swarm, I became a top 16 god, actually more like top 10, because I lost a lot in the first 2 years trying to develop a build. And guess what? When I had the perfect TVT build, boom, I had 3 perfect builds. I never lost in TVT. Unless I played like Select or something, right? Back then. Boom. I never lost versus Zerg. Unless I played like Kane or Scarlet or something, because I had this super refined style with the Raven. And then there was one more that was keeping me up in the ranks, and that was versus Protoss. And for an entire year, I tried a bunch of different things, and I grinded. And guess what I started doing versus Protoss and Heart of the Swarm? This is when they didn't have Adepts. They didn't have, what's the other unit? Disruptors, right? So they couldn't just shoot big balls of death at you and run away. They didn't have that capability anymore, or in the game. They also didn't have a secondary tech where they can go into Adepts and screw you over if they try to Adept all in. So if I saw Twilight, it was either Blink or DT. I could immediately go into that kind of thinking. If they try to do any kind of Robotech, bam, I think Warp Prism, I think Immortal all-ins of some kind. And I would prepare for these certain scenarios while going into the ultimate army. And once I figured out the ultimate army, I never lost in the late game. Or I don't want to say never. Rarely lost. You know what I mean? And that's why you hear me moan and gripe about balance, Because for about 3 years now, ever since they kind of changed and manipulated things in the matchups, I noticed that the late game has gotten extremely difficult to the point that there almost isn't a late game, and it's all based on um, being extremely aggressive as Terran. And the thing is, the reason Terran has gotten that kind of um, reputation as being the aggressive race is because nobody played like I did back then. They played very aggressive. They played bio. They constantly attacked. They didn't like actually get to that 30-minute mark and start destroying things with mass armies. You know what I mean? And it all came down to econ. And so basically, because the masses play that kind of style, Blizzard would nerf that kind of style and nerf other things that were, um, kind of feeling like they were getting overpowered in those certain scenarios. For example, Ravens with Bio blows my mind. Apparently, Ravens with Bio was good in the hands of Maru, so they nerfed the Raven. Boom, the Reaper got super strong that they kept killing things in the mid stages of the game with Reaper medevac. So because Bjorn abused it, boom, it got nerfed. You see what I'm talking about? And what's funny is those players didn't mass these units. They only made like 7 or 8 of them. You know what I mean? 8 of them in the medevac just to mess around, jump around. Maybe 16 if it got to that point with the Reaper harass behind a timing attack with Marines. That's what Bjorn did. The Ravens, not so much. I would go like mass Ravens. You know what I mean? I had like 20 of them for certain scenarios. Point defense drone, seeker missile, things like that. So that's how you can see basically how I theory craft and why I get so frustrated. Because my idea is if both opponents can get to the late game, regardless of race, the person that controls better, and I consider my micro to be good. I think it is, because all I ever did was like micro challenges and stuff in the past. That whoever, when they armies clashed at the late game with 200 army, if I was able to control well enough to completely wipe out an army over my opponents, I would win, right? And so that's why I played those kind of styles, and that's how I got so high in the ranks when I used to play. And that was my fallback go-to if I played an extremely powerful player. Mind you, if I played someone at my level or lower back then, I played aggressive. I would cheese people, I would play mind games, but if I felt like I was playing a god player, I forced them to play late game and forced them into playing that micro versus me. You know what I mean? In the late game. And I had no problem doing it. So, yeah, that's why I get annoyed with the patches and the changes, because it is extremely difficult to make anything work in the late game as Terran anymore. And the balls of death that come at you from Protoss and the balls of death that come at you from Zerg, there's no way to force them to split or force them to, change direction, because it's just a bunch of units together, controlled by a spellcaster like a Viper or Infestors or something that just kind of cast their spells and run into you, because the AoE is gone for Terran in the late game. The only kind of AoE they have is Widow Mines and tanks, and the Widow Mines and tanks don't fare well versus certain units. So, but that's basically what it is, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that kind of like theory crafting a little bit. We spent about an hour on it, talking about it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully this is something that you guys can use when you're playing StarCraft. And don't be afraid to try something new. Think of a really awesome build you have, and then substitute it. Substitute the mineral, substitute the gas for something else. and then think about what happens if I substitute it. What could kill me with those certain units? If I have in my mind, oh, I want to go mass nukes. It sounds crazy. Well, what unit do you need to go mass nukes? You need ghosts, right? So then think about it. If I rush ghosts, what stuff could kill me? You see that? So that's why I developed that ghost build versus Zerg. I could do the ghost, and then if I wanted to, I could go mass nukes behind it. Or if I wanted to, I could go to battlecruiser behind it. Or if I wanted to, I could go to mech behind it and play normal. It just depends. And it's super safe versus certain openers, you know. So you won't see other players play the way I do at Grandmaster level. Maybe because they're afraid to try new things. They're afraid to lose, so they keep to the special builds and Korean builds that come out because that's what they know best, and they just react with it. And that's why you see a lot of this sometimes one-dimensional play that I talk about on the ladder. But you'll notice that even though a lot of the pros, especially like GSL players, when I watch like other Terran players, they'll do exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, I'm going to proxy my racks. But you know what? I don't need to make a racks or another. I'll make another racks at home to protect myself while I send Reapers into their base as its proxy. Oh, but by the way, after 2 Reapers, I'm going to float it back home. Or after 1 Reaper. This is versus Protoss, right? So then my timing for making another Rax would be at like 4:30. Oh, look at that. My Rax is back home at 4:30. You'll see them float it back. And they'll have that timing for their normal build that they would normally be doing. It's just that something's delayed, more likely the command center by 150 minerals. See that? That's also how they play. So even though they're very standard, they will still abuse their standard builds and still proxy and stuff at those certain timings. So yeah, it's really cool. And that's what makes StarCraft interesting and strategic. I just need them to fix that late game, man. Need them to fix it. I'm tired of grinding it for years and not being able to figure it out. Because I should have figured it out by now.